Welcome to Able Pathways podcast. I'm Annabelle Ferber, founder of Able Pathways, where we provide executive function coaching for neurodiverse individuals and professional development for educators. Our podcast explores the windy journeys of learning and growth. Each episode, we travel the unique pathways taken by a diverse range of interesting people as they reflect on pivotal moments in their lives that led to unexpected insights and transformation. Through these conversations, we hope to illuminate the infinite pathways for how we grow and learn. Visit our show notes for links, information about our speakers, and resources mentioned on this episode. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me. I mean, we've had a wonderful chat already.
I would love to hear what engages you, what you're interested in, whether it's reading or listening or watching anything.
I mean, stories, always. And in some weird way, I don't come across as that really. Like when I tell people that I'm actually an introvert, I grew up an introvert, people don't believe me because I am very friendly but in certain circles, like I am not the person who'll be able to walk into a party and just mingle and make friends. So it's always been stories, and reading. So like when you asked me how do I introduce myself, and I said journalist, and it's not a very clear and easy answer now because when you're doing a lot of other things as well. So similarly, when people ask me that where am I from, I really have no answer to that because my father's from one end of the Himalayas, my mother is from the other end of the Himalayas. And I grew up all over North India because my father was in the army. We were changing stations every 2 years, 3 years. So I grew up neither in my father's village nor in my mother's home. And so what happens then is looking the way I do, and you're growing up in the plains where I'm the only person who looks like I do when I join a new school. So you end up reading a lot, right? Like, because then you go to the library and just pick up all the books because by the time you make friends and all that. So I grew up reading. Yeah. So my parents were very good in that. Like they encourage a lot of reading. So I just, I really don't read as much as I would like to anymore. There are too many other distractions nowadays.
I was going to ask you, what distracts you? What do you pay attention to?
Everything. I have always been very easily distracted as well, right? Some new idea comes up, I meet someone and we decide to do like a lot of half baked ideas and stuff. Apart from everything else, right? Like I can spend a whole day sometimes running down rabbit holes on YouTube and finding, always very interesting stuff. This recently I discovered a podcast on YouTube called 154, which I would never otherwise find. It's this wonderful podcast about Africa. So one Africa, like 54 countries. And I didn't know Africa had 54 countries, so like you just keep getting there and history. So for some reason, I'm fascinated by history, Sikkim history on most days, but India. And now, of course, because of everything that is happening in the world, the Middle East or West Asia, as we call it. So, it's just, and because I don't really have a pressure of looking after a newspaper full time anymore, because I'm a consulting editor at the newspaper that I'm helping out with. So I've got a lot of free time, which I really should be using better. And of course, procrastination. I'm big on that as well with actual work.
I think the brain is designed for procrastination. We can't stay too focused on one thing, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Because if you've met anybody who only focuses on one thing, they can become very disabled in the other areas of life when they can just, too much focus can be a bad thing too. It can be a hard.
Yeah, I envy people who can be organized. Actually, I envy them because that's one skill like I never acquired. I'll blame my parents for that, but
Yeah, why not? I mean,
yeah, and books because I remember. So I realized very early in my career that I can procrastinate a lot, especially when on things that I actually want myself to do. Until I read this piece about Martin Luther King and his
Mm,
famous speech, and how it was a last minute, like, I have a dream was not rehearsed
mhm.
speech that he had worked on all this while. It was like something at the end of an all nighter that he came up with this line. And I said, yes, I want that. I want to be able to pull off those brilliant moments and I live for them. So, yeah. So I keep a lot of space for serendipity and
Good.
chance encounters. Absolutely no planning.
Hey, that takes organization to give yourself space for serendipity. I love that.
Yeah.
It's like breathing though, right? You can focus and breathe in and then breathe out. Like, your brain needs breaks. Your brain needs to wander and like make connections too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What brought you to Sikkim? If you were traveling all over, that's
Same.
how long have you been in Sikkim?
So I've been in Sikkim longer than anywhere else in my life and for more than half my life now. So I've been here so I came into Sikkim in 92
92. Yeah.
and I taught for a year in a school here. And then I was in Kathmandu for a year and then I was back again in Sikkim. So it was again like, yeah, I've been very lucky. Like I've been so lucky in life. I went to college in Chandigarh, which is in Punjab. Sikkim was a place that I had only read about in this one encyclopedia that I had at home, and which had a small entry on Sikkim which said this is the place with the highest number of butterfly species.
Mm.
And my mother's half Sikkimese, but from outside Sikkim. She's from Kalimpong. And anyway, so I'm in Chandigarh. And for my final year in college, things went in such a way that I enrolled in Darjeeling at a college there. I went there once and I hated the place and the college. And I too young, right? I was just 20.
Mm.
And I mean, I can't, I mean, my parents were posted in Kalimpong at that time. I couldn't tell them that I don't want to go there. So I got onto a jeep to go to Darjeeling and I had friends, like half relatives, like my brother's wife's younger brother, same age as me, was in Gangtok.
Mm.
So I get onto the jeep to go to Darjeeling, and there's a fork you hit on the highway. You go straight to Darjeeling, you get off, hop a ride on another vehicle, and come to Gangtok. And I said, what the hell? Let's go to Gangtok.
Cool.
So I got off the jeep and got onto this thing, and I came to Gangtok, which I didn't even know how you reached that place, right? At that time. I came here, I didn't know. I just knew which school he taught in. And thankfully, I reached early enough. The school was not over because
Mm.
I don't know what I would have done if the school was over. I didn't know where he lived. So I just asked people and they kept walking. I walked through Gangtok with this suitcase because I was going to hostel, right?
Yeah.
I went to this friend and I said, I don't want to go to Darjeeling. I think I'll just hang out here for a few days. And we are sitting in the school canteen. And this is absolutely weird. Now that I think of it, I'm telling you this story. I don't think I've told this story in the longest while. So we're sitting in the canteen having tea, and this one guy walks in and he knows obviously he's teaching in the same school. And he meets this friend of mine slash cousin and he introduces me. That guy says, did you study English in college? I said, yes. I mean, I had English honors or whatever it's called, right? So he
Mm.
said, oh, so cool. Do you want to teach? And I said, I won't mind, but who's going to hire me as a teacher, right? Like, he said, no, no. So he was the English teacher in that school and he wanted to go on leave. And the school
Wanted
would
you to
not give
take
him
his
leave until he found a replacement. He said, wait here for 10 minutes. Let me meet the headmistress and then you can meet her. And if things work out. This is sheer luck. And I have also been blessed to have always received the kindness of strangers. So I walk into the headmistress's office and I'm 20. Like I would not give myself a job teaching kids ever. And I walk into that at the headmistress's office, and she asked, we get talking. I think they were just looking at someone who could speak English passably enough. And I was still fresh, right, from college. So, and I had very good teachers in school. So we just got talking, and she said, sure, like this person wants to go for 3 months. You want this job for 3 months, it's yours. If the students say, okay, you take some classes. And she says, don't mind if they say you're rubbish and I have to let you go. I said, yeah, sure. Like, and I got the job. And then they just retained me for the whole year. And I said, my God, like, this
That's
really happened.
amazing.
It was absolutely crazy. And like, I loved it. I think I understood Shakespeare when I taught it. I was teaching, okay, it was easy. I was teaching Merchant of Venice. But I realized that a lot of it didn't make so much sense when I was reading it in school. But when I had to prepare to teach kids, I said, why didn't my teachers do this? Well, I mean, I absolutely loved that experience, and I'm so grateful for that. Yeah, and then one thing led to the other. Like, I met my first wife. I mean, like, while I was at the school, we decided to go to Kathmandu. Just, I mean, it's like a gap year. I want kids in Sikkim and in India to be given a gap year. The confidence you can, the experience is wonderful, but the confidence you get from that surviving that 1 year is crazy. And then you know what you want to study as well at the
Yeah.
end of it. So after that, like, so I taught for a year. The school was getting over. I said, I really don't think I want to do this for the whole, like, my life. Like, I
Yeah.
can't go back to teaching the same chapters with the same excitement. And so I said, let's try Kathmandu. I'd never been to Kathmandu either. And so I and my first wife, we just left slash ran away, whatever, eloped to Kathmandu. I mean, but it was not eloping, as in, like, she told her parents that she was going with me to Kathmandu, and like they just couldn't, like, you either elope and people come to know later, but if you tell them that I'm going tomorrow with this guy to Kathmandu, they just don't know how to process that, right? Yeah, and we left, and I guess everyone was too shocked to try and stop, because who am I? I'm not even local. They have no idea of who this guy is, right? I mean, they thought I was nice enough. I mean, I'd met them and all.
Yeah.
So we left. My parents were in Kalimpong, and then we were there for a week or whatever. We went to Kathmandu, and it's crazy. Like, so no job. Like, we just in Kathmandu.
Yeah.
And so my then wife had an offer from a school there to teach. Someone was starting a school, so there was an offer. I was sure I didn't want to teach, right? I didn't want to join that school. So on the second day, I got a job with a newspaper, Kathmandu Post, which was launching in Nepal. So they had not started printing yet. They were like doing the trial runs or whatever. And they hired me. And the newspapers always need marketing people. So it was not as a journalist. They hired me as a marketing guy to sell ad space or whatever. And so I don't always have long hair, but at that time I had longish hair.
Mm.
And second day, the managing editor or whoever is in charge, he does this briefing where he says, like, your marketing guys, you all have to be better turned out and smartly
Is
turned out. And so I said, I can't work here. Like, this is the first day and I can't work here. And I sketch. I used to sketch, and I just drawn some stuff about pollution and all that. And I'd seen this person who runs an NGO or something. This is the second or third day in Kathmandu, I think. So I go to meet him. Again, the same thing, right? I go to, like I say, like, what some sketches you want to use it for your promotional material, take it. And of course, someone I knew, her sister was also working at the same office. So that was the connection. So I went there, I gave this person these sketches. I said that they are not very original, but what the hell? Like, if you want to use them, you could. And he said, uh, do you have the time to meet my editor? I said, sure, like, I don't have anything else to do. So this guy was the managing editor at a magazine called Himal. And you won't believe me, he also wanted to go on leave and didn't have a replacement. So I
You
said,
are
come
lucky
on.
showing up at the right time in the right
Like,
place.
I don't, yeah. And why would they even give me the time of the day? I mean, like, I don't know anything about marketing, journalism, Nepal, like nothing. I don't even
Yeah,
know the language. I
yeah,
only know English and
yeah.
Hindi. So I met Kanak. He was the editor of Himal, a very respected magazine. And so they were a team of three people. Kanak was the editor, Manisha was the executive editor, associate editor, and this guy was the managing editor. He said, like, I really need time off. I can't give to the magazine. It was a struggling magazine. So meet Kanak, see if it works. And I met Kanak one afternoon and he offered me the job. Managing editor. I said, like, I have no idea what even the job entails. But that was wonderful. So I was a year with Himal and it was a bi-monthly, so came out once every 2 months. I learned a lot just watching the process. I managed to get a lot of revenue and somehow it worked. I
Mm.
managed to get them some good deals and some advertisements and I saw the whole process and it was such a wonderful place to work in for a year. And after a year, we came back to Gangtok and I said, I want to be a journalist now. But like in Sikkim, there were no, Sikkim was in a very bad state in 94. So I come back in 94 to Sikkim and it's going through a very bad phase of a government that was very hostile to journalists. Newspapers were attacked, shut down. So
Yeah, no,
I read a book called Inside Sikkim Against the Tide by Jigme and Kazi. So that is a book he wrote about his struggles with the government. I mean, as the name says, Inside Sikkim Against the Tide, about his struggles with the government, about what stories he wanted to do. I read that book and I said, I want to work with this guy. And I found out where he lived and I just went to meet him and I said, I'm so and so. I've worked for a year in Himal. I mean, Himal has very solid street cred, right? It's a very respected
nice.
public.
Yeah,
I did not do any journalism in Himal, of course, right? Like I just saw them work. They won't let
yeah,
me touch anything. I didn't know anything, right, about the place or the Himalayas
yeah.
or anything. But I saw them work. I saw how this works. And I said, I read your book and I would really like to work with you.
Mm.
And I remember Jigmila. That's what I call him. Jigmila said, so this is sometime in October end, I think. He said, right now my newspaper is not coming out. Like my newspaper is shut. It's not publishing. Come to me in December, end December, which is when the elections were going to be held in Sikkim. He said, if the government changes, I will start my newspaper and you might have a job. And if the same guy comes back, then even I won't have a job. So I said, government changed. So the universe conspired to give me a job and help Sikkim get democracy. So the government changed. The next day I was at Jigmila saying, the government changed. Do I have a job? And like he was just like, he said, sure. Like, so he gave me his copy of All the President's Men. He said, read this. Because I told him I don't know journalism. I don't know Sikkim. I don't know how anything. I just want to learn. So he gave me All the President's Men. And he said, this is like journalism. So that was my like the only
Wow.
book on journalism I read. And it was crazy. The 4 years that I was with Sikkim Observer, what Jigmila allowed me to do, the kind of stories I was allowed to do, how he kind of held me through the whole process. Yeah, just like that was so wonderful. So that's what I say, like kindness of strangers. Like it's no reason for him to even meet me. Like,
But
but
it
he
doesn't
offered me
it
the job.
I mean, it does seem like it says something about you that, you know, yes, maybe you're showing up at the right time in the right place, but there's something about you though that people are responding to and trust or feel like they could work with you or they see your potential. So it's something about you
That's such
too.
a scary. I mean, like, so for like, I've been here for about 30 years in
Yeah.
journalism. So, like, I'm what they call a veteran, like,
Yeah.
senior journalist. So, the imposter syndrome is so huge. It's so scary. And,
Yeah.
but yeah,
But it's not
man,
just because you could have been right place, right time, but not be the kind of person you are that someone would trust to give them a job or trust to try something totally new. But I understand the imposter syndrome because but in some ways, I mean, the way that you've become a journalist through just real life experience and learning from other people, it's like you did go to school for it. You just school of life and circumstance,
Yeah.
but
Yes. I mean, just I when I tell people that I did not even read newspapers growing up, like
yeah.
they find it so weird. And I said, yeah, I mean, like, but I knew, like, I read Spider-Man, I read
I was
Superman.
gonna say you were
They were both journalists, and like I
that's
read
right.
Batman, so there's the whole detective thing as well. So I said, like,
Right?
got it from them.
That's right.
I'm
And
sure.
if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of who wrote those stories, who created Batman, who created Superman, they were immigrants who were fleeing terrible places or the children of immigrants. So that's embedded in all of the stories that can resonate with us on these really deep levels. I mean, stories, well, let me ask you, like, what's the relationship you see between the cultural stories we tell ourselves and journalism?
Like, so I recently collaborated on a graphic novel
Oh,
with a
cool.
French artist. So it's going to be a big one, like 200 pages, based in Sikkim. It's called
Wow.
Sikkim Stories.
Wow.
And so I was recently in this artist, like, I'm not the artist, I'm the writer, he's
The
the
writer.
artist. But someone asked me the same thing about, like, how I make peace with this fiction that I've written, which has myths, and my work as a journalist. And I tell this to every person who's interested in journalism, that we are storytellers at the end of the day. And and I'm a print guy. I mean, okay, I've done podcasts, but that's a different thing. But we are storytellers. I mean, I seriously believe this, that we are storytellers and we are also performers, because we are putting it out there, right? So I might not be reading it out in the town square, but what I write is out there for scrutiny, and it's a performance in that sense, right? I'm not acting, but here it is, the story. It's hopefully fact based most of the times. So that, and very early in my journey, in my stay in Sikkim as a teacher as well, I realized that the younger generation that I was dealing with in schools had this huge disconnect with their Sikkim's history
Yeah.
and heritage, right?
Yeah.
It was the wounds of the merger, I guess. The elder generation carried this guilt, so the kids didn't know much about what Sikkim was about. So it was always a very strong focus of my journalism as well, to be able to tell these stories that were not just things that were happening, but also like the Face in the Crowd series that we did. It was always also about, like, making it Sikkim's, right? And I was lucky because not too many people were doing that. Like, journalism, like I said, was struggling when I joined in Sikkim. In fact, 94, when I joined Sikkim Observer, I was the only journalist getting a salary. As in, like, I was the only hire as a reporter in Sikkim.
The
All
whole
newspapers that were
region.
here were
Yeah.
family run operations, right? The editor was the reporter, was the marketing agent. They were like cottage industries, very small
Yeah. Yeah,
operations.
yeah.
So Jigmela kind of really stuck his neck out and hired me. I mean, I was not paid a huge salary or anything. So in one of the earlier, like, for instance, one of the earlier series I did, because this was I mean, I was so lucky, right? All the stories I wanted to know more about, all the people I wanted to know more about, I had a platform that allowed me to enter those homes and ask those people to talk to me. So one of the series I did at Sikkim Observer very early was called Old Gangtokians. It was about these, so it's kind of the precursor to the Face in the Crowd, but Old Gangtokians were old people, like, yeah, they had to be of a certain vintage.
I like that term.
People who had seen history and important episodes, and same thing, I spoke to them and fascinating stories came out,
I
which
bet.
improved my understanding of the place as well. Yeah, I was lucky because Himal was a bi-monthly, like they would come out with one edition every 2 months. It was, they actually had like researchers writing popular, like writing articles for a general audience. So I like this term. So there is this website that I go to very often called The Conversation. And their tagline is academic rigor, journalistic flair. So Himal was that. So Himal would have, and Himal is full with researchers and expats and brilliant people, really. And so they would get all of them to write accessible stories, but long form. The term didn't exist at that time, but really long form piece. So I exposed to that. And in Sikkim, Sikkim Observer was a weekly. So all the newspapers I started after Sikkim Observer were weeklies. So that was the excitement, right? Because then you can let stories marinate. Like you have to actually have storyboard discussions where you say, okay, these are the stories we want to do. The stories are built, like they're just not reporting things that happened. I really hated it when we later turned daily because of that's what was required. So I
What
don't like
year
daily.
what year or roughly what year did things turn daily?
So I mean, like 2003, I think. So
Okay.
so I was with Sikkim Observer, and then we enjoyed doing this so much, Jigmila and I, that we had two weeklies. We were taking out two weeklies. So Sikkim Observer and Himalayan Guardian. So one would come out on a Wednesday and the other would come out on a Saturday, and we would do everything. And then we also tried out a monthly magazine, Hill People. So we were just going crazy, like, let's just, you come up with an idea, let's do it. So then from 94 to 99, I was with 94 to 99, yeah, thereabouts. 98, I was with Sikkim Observer. Then I had to take a year off because my father had a health scare. And I just felt so guilty not being around when he had that. So I said, okay, I'll stay. I mean, it's not like I was earning much, anyways. Oh, so that one year I was in Kalimpong with my father, who had retired at that time, and I was the swimming instructor at a school there, which was more like a lifeguard. I was just making sure no one drowned, really. I was not training them, like, because like the entire hostel would show up for this small swimming pool, like, and I was so scared that someone will just be stepped on and would be underwater somewhere and we can't see them. So yeah, so that then I came back and launched a newspaper called Weekend Review, which just exploded. I mean, it became, as far as newspapers go, it is like a watershed moment for Sikkim. It became hugely popular, crazily popular. And again, for the kind of stories that we were doing.
Mm.
I did that. And then in 2002, I launched, so I left this and then launched a newspaper called Now, Sikkim Now in 2002, which I had to shut down in 2015, ran out of money. And the global economy was like the ads dried up and everything happened. So that was fun. So that we made a daily in 2004 because it just like the market required that. And that just and we had no idea how to do a daily, right? We were used to a weekly. I like the tabloid form. I like
Yeah.
having a cover story,
Yeah.
right? A story that you work on, and then you go daily. And there's a very big lack of professionals.
What are you up to these days? What are you engaged with today in the world of journalism and storytelling or writing a book? Yeah.
There was the graphic novel.
Oh, yes.
So it's called Sikkim Stories. And interestingly, it's going to be published in France before it's published in India. We've locked September.
Very
Got to
cool.
publish it. So finished with that, the writing part. Now Simon, who's the artist, he's finishing the inking. It's turning out. It's like learning a new language for me. I mean, not French. I wrote it in English, but the language of graphic novels, like so that was so fascinating. So about like the last year, I would say off and on, was occupied with that. It's a, like I said, it's a 200-page graphic novel. It was fun, absolutely fun doing that. So the Sikkim stories, what actually happened is the French government Institute Français has this program called Villa Swagatam in India,
Mm.
in which they bring French artists, poets, different people, and they keep them in residencies all over India.
Oh, and that's
And
Simone who you
Simon
mentioned.
was
It's a
in Gangtok on a residency, and same thing at a bookstore here, which also has a B&B. So that friend, who's a friend, and Simon had been around for a while, and then one day Peter was there for the day this whole thing came together. So this friend Raman, who runs
yeah,
the books, he said, "Come over for dinner if you have the
yeah.
time." Is this artist? They know I like telling stories to anyone who'll bother to listen. He said, "Come over. He might get some ideas. Let's see what happens." Peter was there as well, and we had dinner and a string of many stories. And Simon just got excited with one. He said, "Let's do this 13 pager." And then, of course, we put it out. We printed it, digital print, very in the land of the Lama. I'll share the PDF with you
Please
uh,
do.
of, of that first chapter, let's say. And Simon is a graphic artist, right? I'm a novelist. He's done 3 already, brilliant works. And so he said, and we just started fleshing out the story, right? So we drew in more characters, more situations. So it's basically, yeah. So everything we wanted to say about lifestyles, no, yeah. So it's about the yak herders
Mhm.
who I feel very passionately for because I feel that no one is telling their story enough. That's a way of life that's ending. It's about there's a woman, there's a lady character in it. Then we talk about the gender issues of Sikkim and how problematic that is. And we've got an Indian Army soldier as well who arrives in Sikkim and doesn't know where he is. So
This is so cool.
it's like absolutely crazy. So Simon said, okay, like I grew up reading comics, right? I consumed mad comics as well, right? I mean, that's the
Same.
American.
We got Mad Magazine.
So
Yeah.
mad comics and Archies. And so these were available, right? Of course, like then, of course, the Tintins and Asterix and all that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, so
Yeah.
I never, like, I consumed it, but I never understood like how to, I mean, consumed it in a way that I didn't know the craft of it, right? So it was so funny. Then Simon said, okay, like given that he had only a week in which we had to put this together, right? This one episode we pulled out and try out. So he said, okay, like this is the general story. I'll go with that story that I told him, and like this is the situation. So I said, cool. I'll go home. I'll write out something, and I'll come tomorrow. And it was crazy. I like went the next day, and Simon like almost fell off his chair because I had done this whole Quentin Tarantino screenplay, right? Where the characters are talking like expounding away, right? They just and he said, like, do you know like, how much space we have in the panel? Like, and so now my respect, I don't know how much you consume graphic novels, but like, now I look at a graphic novel and I know the amount of work that goes into it and like how tight you have to be with the writing. So the story is all like, it's fact, right? Everything that is being said in our story is fact, but we embellish it with characters and like stuff I can't say when I'm writing a report, let's say, right? But these are
Yeah.
all stories that we've been writing about in different platforms already, like gender, the
Yeah.
dog, what the army does.
I feel like you're able to be even more like honest or forthcoming or transparent or in this form. What are you able to do in this form that you can't do in more traditional journalism?
Hmm. I mean, not because I have been doing a lot of long form as well, storytelling where like the opinion does come in a lot as well. So, had it not been for Simon and this chance encounter, I would not have ever thought I'll do a graphic, like collaborate on a graphic novel. I mean, that was just something that he was there, he was interested, and I said, of course, I'm like game. Um, uh, so, but when I'm working with the medium, I'm realizing now that the some of the stories that are like some of the issues that we've dealt with in this, I feel they come out so well in the graphic novel fiction. I mean, I would never have written a novel, let's say, for example, right? I mean, the other option would have been to do a fiction novel
Mm, mm.
kind of stuff, but I would probably not have done that.
Not yet.
Like,
I could imagine you doing that.
yeah, I know. Never say no. I mean, of course, I want to write a science fiction based in Sikkim with, no, what I'm struggling with is I want the science to be all wrong in it with the characters explaining it in such a convincing way that it could become a WhatsApp forward in which we're telling the world that you got it all wrong. I will
I
define
love that.
gravity in this way from a lecture in the forest, which is completely disconnected from everything that you've read so far. Anyways, but those are those.
I
So,
would read that
yeah, I know. I mean, I wish I could write it.
one day. But okay, let me just to wrap up, I'll ask you about kind of the future for yourself and what you're hoping to do in the coming years, what you're looking forward to. I know you've mentioned some of the projects you're involved in, but is there anything in particular that you're working towards or hope to be doing in the future?
Whoa. I plan to write more. I don't really think I'm writing as much as I want to. And I mean, I'm hoping that because I seriously believe that books should always be available. Two books that I've done have been out of print for too long.
Mm.
And so I have to get them out. And there are a couple of other projects. I want to really do some children's literature. And I've got a story which I think really works for an illustrated thing. So getting that out. Yeah, and the hundreds of other stories that need to be written have to finally be done. So yeah, I mean, my hope is to be more productive, to put out more. That's one. The comic graphic novel is done. So I don't know. I don't know. Let's see how it goes from
Let's
there.
see how it goes. All right. I love that. I always ask folks at the end of the podcast if there are particular people or organizations that you want to promote. So just things that rabbit holes that you want to open up for other people. Is there anything you want to shout out?
Oof. Nothing as such. I mean, just the hope is that people start consuming good media down the line. Organizations, I can't really think of anything. I'm not really associated with anything, am I?
I
So,
mean, Taktse shows up on a lot of lists.
oh yeah, I mean, like if you've got kids, send them to Taksi, definitely. Would be my recommendation. Or if you've got the skills, then come and do a residency there. I think it's a wonderful place. So yeah, I mean, Taksi definitely, and more schools like that. I wish that more schools adopted that way of treating kids with more respect. And while on that, there is an organization called the Ekavya Trust. This is a group that works on children's literature in Hindi primarily, but also a lot of wordless stuff. And I was introduced to them about a year back in Delhi. I just walked into their store in Delhi and I was blown away by the work they do. And because they are putting out children's literature that doesn't infantilize kids, they're
Mhm.
dealing with quite serious issues sometimes, just telling the kids how it is. Absolutely brilliant work they're doing, dealing with some very sensitive issues as well. Also fun at the same time. So this is they're not on a pulpit
Yeah.
promoting ideology. They're also very entertaining, brilliant artists,
Yeah.
brilliant writers, and some very big names in Indian literary scene write children's literature for them. And that's something that I've been trying to convince more and more people in Sikkim as well, who
Mhm.
have who are senior, experienced and whatever, and trying to convince them that you can bring all of that and produce something for a younger audience.
Yeah.
One of the things that I also don't see enough of in Sikkim is children's literature out of Sikkim. There should be more. I mean, there should be a whole industry that is producing this. in all the languages that the kids are familiar with, telling their stories from their land. It's just not happening enough, and it is really irritating. I'd like to recommend, I think, Knife by Salman Rushdie that I finished recently is brilliant. I have not read much of Salman Rushdie, right? Like, I've not really read any of his fiction. Must be one of the only people who's not read Salman Rushdie.
Yeah. No Midnight's Children? That seems
No,
impossible.
I know, right? Like, so, but I read Knife and it's just blew me away again for how honest it is, how self aware the man is. He's self deprecating as well without pretending like it's not fake.
It's all that, yeah.
For someone who's suffered this attack, he still has a sense of humor, which is so refreshing. I recently finished a book called Why the Poor Don't Kill Us by Manu Joseph, which is this, again, very interesting take on the Indian experience and why really the poor don't kill us when they are more in number and they are treated the way they are. So that was really good. There's Meet the Savarnas, which is again a very Indian experience, which looks at the mediocrity of the privileged Indians and how you'd probably like it. I mean, you don't really need to get the whole caste business in place, but people who've traditionally been the privileged lot have somehow convinced themselves and the rest of India that they have somehow been sidelined and
Oh,
denied.
look, we have a very
So,
similar system
yeah,
here, even though it goes by different names. It's a real sickness that's all over the world.
yeah, yeah. So, you
Um,
like both these books then?
I'm gonna like all of
Uh,
these books. This is why I ask people because this is where I get my reading list from,
yeah.
to add to like the fun stories I like to read too. So, I mean, these sound fun actually, but I like to mix my reading diet with like fantastical stories and science fiction stories and then nonfiction. I like to just have a little bit from everywhere.
So I have reached a stage where I can't read fiction. I don't know why. Unless it comes recommended or it's by someone I know. So some of the Sikkim books are really good.
Yeah.
King's Harvest by Chetan Shrestha uh, is wonderful. The Light of His Clan, two books by Chetan Raj Shrestha from Sikkim, really good. And there is one books. The other fiction I read is a translation from Nepali. It's Fruits of Fruits of the Barren Tree by Leknath Chetri. It's about this really violent movement in the Darjeeling Hills for statehood. Wonderful, wonderful book. It's a translation uh, of from Nepali called Pulange. Anyways, but Fruits of the Barren Tree.
I want to thank you so much for taking time to
No,
speak
this
with
was
me.
thanks for staying for this long with the conversation. I
It was delightful to speak with you,
so absolutely. You should visit
and
Sikkim.
it's truly such an
This
honor
was fun.
to speak with you.
It was absolutely fun.
Yeah, really, really fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, I invite you to share this episode and subscribe to Able Pathways podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us to share these meaningful conversations with more people. Have thoughts about this episode or suggestions for future guests? We would love to hear from you. Leave us a comment or email us at hello@ablepathways.com. Until next time, I'm Annabelle, reminding you that there are infinite pathways to growth. May you travel yours with curiosity and courage.